Greetings and welcome. I will be one of your hosts today, Ashton Phoenix, and of course, my co-hosts with me as always are Sib and Jazz.
Hello.
How's it going, everybody?
All good.
Fair to mostly crappy. We've two of the three of us have been sick.
Yes.
I was one
That's
of them,
true.
and Jazz was the other.
Yes.
I'm good.
So if I suddenly go quiet, it's because I'm probably sneezing and my nose flew off and I have to go find it.
Yeah, so it's gonna be.
I got your nose.
It's gonna be the episode where we kind of sound like that 80-year-old Vegas lady that's always hitting on the young guys at the casino. Put it on, Black 13. You know, you remind me of my fourth husband. He was a saint of a man, died tragically. I don't like to go into it beyond that. So, it's pretty much what we're going to sound like the whole time. So this will be our 17th episode. Story time. Excellent. Yeah, right. Party on, Wayne. So this will be the third installment of our event series, a trilogy, if you will, because apparently trilogies are the ways to go with all things. And after this one, there are other kind of event subjects that we can hit on, but I figure 3 in a row for a month and a half will probably be more than enough, and you'll all be sick of hearing about this, and we'll move on to something else for a while, unless, of course, you really, really, really demand to hear more about that, and then in case we'll make something up, because we basically do that anyway. We take a solid 15 minutes worth of content and cram it into a good hour and a half worth of show. So you got that going for us. So let's see here. If you're listening to us live, we do appreciate you tuning in at twitch.tv/RPMMORadio. Of course, if you're listening to us on the podcast and you want to hear us live, you can go to the website I just said. If you're you want to hear it after the fact because you're listening to it live, you can go to iTunes or whatever they call it now, Apple something, Apple iPhone X1049 face / something. I don't know. Everything Apple does lately just kind of confuses me. But they're a huge market for podcasts, and actually they created podcasts. That's the iPod is the reason that put the pod in podcast. I actually didn't know that until recently. And Google Play, Stitcher, all that good stuff. Just give us a download, give us a like, give us a subscribe if you actually like what you hear. Though after today's episode, I doubt there will be many of those, especially on the iTunes Apple thing. If you give us a thumbs up or a quick review on there, it helps us pop us up a little bit quicker and a little bit towards the top when someone searches for MMORPG or MMO stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of competition out there, but most of them are for specific games, and we are general. So take that, specific game people. But what?
I have to say, when you say RP,
You got to speak up, woman.
I know, but whenever you say it really fast, it sounds like Harpy Radio.
RPMMORadio.
Yeah.
Well, 2 out of 3 of us could be considered that.
Ooh.
You walked right into that one.
Boo. I did. Sorry, Jazz.
RPMMORadio. Yes. But anyway, so that's all our show stuff. You know, like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. If you don't know it by now, you've not been on the internet very long. Or you're my grandma. Oh, that made me sad. My grandma's dead.
Dude.
Oh, wait. I have 2 grandmas. I have 2 other grandmas. 2 out of 3 is not bad, right? Yeah. Of course, they're not doing very good either. Oh, now I'm sad again. Anyway, so what have we been doing on a roleplay, ladies? Anybody want to step up? Yeah, I know it's going to be one of those shows. I'm totally going to be schizophrenic today. It's the sickness.
Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. This week I really had life kind of grab a hammer and come after me physically. So
Yeah. We're sorry to hear about that. Truly.
between my mother and my health and yeah. So I
And
did
she's
not
got
get as
boys. Literally all boys. It's a
I
house
do.
full of boys.
4 boys. So my
And a
life has
husband.
been a little hectic. Yeah, he counts.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not get much time in game really. I got in late and would stay for a couple hours and log out. I didn't get as much RP as I'd like, although I have met a couple of new people that
Cool.
I am enjoying hanging out with in the Tavern RP. And we're, as a guild, we've been working for the last week and a half on some inter-guild RP with another guild. So
Yeah. Most of which
With-
I missed because I was definitely sick these last. I didn't make it to any of our guild things the last 2 days
Yeah.
for any guild. I wasn't even.
yeah.
I watched Rogue One. I watched The Force Awakens. I fucking watched Tropic Thunder today. I was that not feeling like playing video games.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
I walked in and I was like, oh my God, it's going to be one of those days.
Yeah.
Because I saw what he was watching. It's like Tropic Thunder. Really?
I'm the dude, played a dude who looks like another dude. That's right. So that's cool, Jazz. I'm glad you're getting out there, meeting new people, playing that.
So we're really trying to get the guild to work with other guilds because that's really how you build long term.
Yeah, you can only enter guild so much before you start getting stale with the people that you already know. Yeah.
It's important to keep them both.
No,
you
yeah,
know.
inter guild's the word. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I got it. Yeah. Somebody give me a gold star.
Right in the forehead.
Yeah, with a tack hammer. So what about you, Sib? What you been up to?
Oh, popping into game here and there. Oh, this last week I haven't got much RPing, but the week before I did. Like I said, got a new character into a new guild, which they had an RP event the night I got roleplayed in, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. Haven't been in game. Real life's really been getting me, so been adulting, which I hate.
Yeah.
But you have to do it, so, and I figure when I retire, I will just play everything on every console, because I just love it. And not to mention, I like to watch series. Of course, my whole family does, but I got into that H.H. Holmes series, American Ripper, and so I've been kind of
America's first real serial killer.
flying through that sucker. But good times.
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool hearing about him. The words they had to just make up in psychology, like sociopath and all that stuff, was because of that guy. They didn't exist. Nobody knew somebody could do something like that until they found out his murder castle and all that stuff, and it was pretty cool. Of course, like all history series, it ends on we still don't know if he actually was Jack the Ripper or not. So it was 10 episodes of I don't know. But the stuff they found in between was actually very cool.
Yeah,
It's just
pretty cool.
kind of like a movie based on a book. Yeah, the ending was a letdown. Or if it was The Dark Tower, it was also a letdown. So as for me, on Tarvala, I got to roleplay, like personal roleplay with some people, just getting to know them outside of the military. They're the commanders and stuff like that, and got to roleplay them and get to know them as actual people instead of, the ones that would whip and flog you whenever you did something wrong or call you names and are always kicking your ass. But she's high enough up now that's a possibility, and it was actually quite a bit of fun to actually get to know. I knew there was depth in those characters, but it's hard to get to when you're a scrub. It's like getting to know your commander in the military when you're a raw recruit. You're not going to be like one-on-one buddy cop with them yet. That takes some while to get up there. So that was actually quite a bit of fun, and completely unrelated to anything MMO. I got a Mewtwo in Pokemon Go yesterday. So that was awesome. And also some of those Pokemon Go people are crazy ass weird, and that's coming from me. That's saying something. It's like, wow.
Yes, it is.
They're basically like some of it's just a real life version of the stuff sometimes we have to put up with in MMOs. There's a troll one, there's the bossy broad that's like, I need everybody over here right now. But we got them, so apparently her bossiness paid off. It was pretty cool.
You got to have that person though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That can get everybody where they need to go.
Yeah. To grab
Even
the
if they
Pokemon
are.
by the balls. The Pokeballs. So that's pretty much what I've been doing too, and of course, leveling and all that other fun stuff. Played a really cool game actually. If you want a good story-driven game for super cheap on Steam, Observer is a really good one. It's a cyberpunk. They call them walking simulators because there's really not a lot of. You actually don't fight. There's no gun combat or anything like that. And the main character is actually, for those of you my age, if you remember the main bad guy off of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, it's that actor, and it looks just like him, and it's just him and his gruff voice basically narrating the entire thing, and it was really good. So
Nice.
if you like cyberpunk stuff, because there's never a whole lot of good cyberpunk in video games for whatever reason. They always kind of screw it up. I guess Deus Ex is about as close as you really get recently. The people that did Witcher, however, are doing one called Cyberpunk 2077, which will be their next big game. I'm really looking forward to that, because if they do what they did with Witcher with their own property, game's going to be amazing. So
Yeah.
because Witcher was awesome. But all right, so we got so much stuff to go into in the storytelling RP stuff. We don't really have any news items that were really newsworthy so much. So we're just going to kind of, jump right into it. Of course, that is after a word from our sponsors. Gather around the campfire for Uncle Orbick's Orc Tales. Out now on audiobook. Uncle Orbick tells his best stories to the newest generation of little children, orc and fleshy humans alike. Like the classic, "My axe dug deep into the puny white flesh skull of the human chief. His village was ours, their women and children our new slaves, to do with as we wished. That was the day I got my favorite chef." Or this tale in relationship advice: anytime you get a woman, okay, make sure she has much bigness up front for feeding the babies. You gotta take care of the babies. Also tusks. There's nothing sexier than a woman with big giant tucks sticking right out of her mouth. Gives you something just to grab hold of when you like that. You gotta grab hold tight. And many more tales. Go to your local book retailer and ask for Uncle Orbrick's Orc Tales. Read by the man, the myth, the possible homicidal sociopath himself, Uncle Orbrick. Tusk off. There you go. That was a short one.
They just get better and better.
Oh,
I don't
they
know
do.
where you find these advertisers.
Usually scraping the bottom of a barrel seems to bring them up, yeah. Hey, when you got sick voice, you may as well go with it. Give it that
Very true.
extra bit of gravitas, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's right. So, tell me a story. So, story event roleplay is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's telling a story at an event for roleplay. That's it. All right. Well, I think you guys can figure out from there. Someone, usually considered a DM from like Dungeons and Dragons. We're gonna call it a DM for Dungeon Master from D&D because
Everybody does.
Yeah, everyone does. It's the easiest thing. Narrator, I guess, is another good one, but it's just DM. Don't overthink it, like I just did. So the DM basically will come up with a story or even a series of stories and take place around or in game and focus on a group of usually it goes for guilds, but some people open it up outside of that. A lot of time when it comes to the story stuff, if you go outside your guild, especially if it's people you don't know, you can get complications. Yeah, because everyone's got their different styles of role play, and if you don't know what that is, or you don't know who they are, it can get complicated. So typically this works best for in-guild stuff, and that's you're just doing it for the group of RPers, and it typically works like that. So one thing, Sib was actually listening to something, and she had noticed that it was another podcast. What was it you were listening to?
It was, oh my goodness. You had to ask me, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, well,
It was on the Human Floyd's website.
Oh, that's right, on RPHQ, but .org.
Yes, .org.
But they were one thing I've noticed listening.
It was like he has a list of podcasts and shows or YouTube things, and they're all real good. And I was kind of looking through them and listening, and the very last one, I want to say it was called "All the World's a Stage."
Sounds about right. I think I've seen that one on there, yeah.
Yeah, but go ahead.
But she had noticed that a lot of the things that they were calling stuff is not terms we've ever used. And I've noticed that as well, listening to other podcasts, other YouTube videos on roleplay. Some people call the characters, tunes. One that I heard, and it's actually based what they named their show after, Musecast. They call them muses, which that was weird to me, but apparently that's a thing. A lot of people will say things like head canon for basically a short version of saying what you have in your own head as what you think things are, or the way they are, or character is. But what was it? What was the term that you had heard that was like
a Mary Sue? A
Mary Sue for basically a god modder.
Sure.
Yeah, and I honestly,
it was just stuff. Because I know I've heard a lot of the terms, but even some, like you mentioned something else I hadn't ever heard of. I'm looking it up. Make sure.
But yeah, so there's all sorts of different terms.
All the games a stage.
All the games a stage.
Yeah.
There you go. At rphq.org.
Not RP and Mary Sue.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is basically a god modder.
Yeah.
Or a metagamer. But, it's not a term I'm familiar with, but it basically means the same thing. Another one I heard the other day was blending instead of mixing. I knew what it meant, but I just was like, I've never heard it called blending before.
I have.
Yeah. But, so there's a lot of things. So, if you hear something and it sounds like something that we say, but you're from I think it's more of, it varies from as more generations of role players are coming up, and from game to game. Each game has its own little,
because I know
and things like that.
The girl that was doing the YouTube, she was playing a different game, and I cannot for the life of me remember that. So I'm super sorry about that. But yeah, she was playing in a different game.
Yeah.
Not ESL.
Yeah. So, there is that. Oh, and by the way, since we're talking about rphq.org, the Human Floyd, a thing that we did with him, a role play, he actually has the first part 1 of 2 up of that role play session that we did with him, of the story that he took our 3 characters through, up over at their YouTube page and up at rphq.org. If anyone wants to see that, it was actually pretty funny. It was actually a really good time in character, and it's pretty funny listening to him talk about it while he's doing it as well. It's only about 20-25 minutes for the first one, and then there'll be the last part actually has a pretty good, won't spoil it, but it has a surprise ending. What a twist! It's
What a twist.
Yes, very M. Night Shyamalan, but without aliens or that turns out it's in modern day. It's actually not in modern day, so don't worry, that's not the twist. So, of course, to get started, going back to the storytelling, you'll, of course, want to let people know, as we said in our very first episode in this trilogy, via the MOTD or on forums, Discord. Often the slash, or not, it's actually not slash, but the @everyone will ping and put a little number next to it so people know that there's something that you need to see there. And yeah, the one guild I'm in, they do that about an hour beforehand, and then maybe about 15 minutes to go. It's good to keep people up to date, especially if it's something planned or if something suddenly pops up out of nowhere, Jazz. Pointing at you.
Yes.
We had something pop up suddenly that somebody was going to do, and I just happened to log into it right before it started. So I had to make fun of the hell out of her for it.
Yeah. Because I did put it in the message of the day.
Yeah, or on Discord, which is funny because you're the one that always reminds me to use Discord. Yeah, every time we do a show, I always forget Discord. But of course, knowing to do it and remembering in the moment are not always the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But also, she was kind of not sick yet, so nope, that's not an excuse. Never mind. Yeah, you're just a bad person.
Yeah.
So, as we're getting ready to start this, one of the things it seems like it's often best to group in the game if it allows for enough people. Typically, you're not going to have more than, whatever the raid thing is for an event RP. So that typically doesn't come up as a problem. And that will serve a few different purposes. One is that it will give you a place to talk and describe things out of character as both the DM and even as the person if you need to set up what everyone sees and what you see in return or what you're doing. It can also be used as the in-character chat where actually everything will take place in the group chat instead of using say. This kind of helps when the roleplay event takes place over a large area because those say bubbles are actually, they seem big in a tavern, especially when you get that wall scroll of, that Chinese, great wall of text. But when you get out in the open outside, that bubble seems to be far smaller than you remembered it being on the inside. So if you're doing all your posts in game in the group chat, that helps keep it, no matter how spread out people, like if you're doing something where you're flanking people or you've got people surrounding a building trying to find a way into it, whatever it might be, whatever your reason is that people have spread out, everybody can see what everyone else is doing, at least, especially
because in some games, spatial is really small, and in other games, spatial is really big.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to control who can hear and see what's going on is really important.
Yeah. And you can decide, if like they're way far away, you'll still at least know out of character what the other group is doing, but just like common sense, if your character's so far away, there's no way they could hear what's going on or see what's going on because they're up over a rise, then at least you're aware of it and you get to enjoy that part of the story without having to, and then you can be updated later on. And the third reason is for sensitive things out in the game world, like killing, murdering, torture, or even, just to avoid getting the attention of trolls.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good reason to have the roleplay there. Often, even with the trolls, though, just you guys, I know that happens in the servants of temples when they gather for almost anything out in the world, especially the ordination things on Monday, because where they gather is I think it's the Iliath Temple, if I'm saying it right. I only see it spelled. I don't ever say it out loud. But, you see a whole bunch of people in golden armor lined up, and they got character names over their head, even if they don't see what we're saying, which typically in that area we actually use just the general chat, unless, of course, we're killing Enwa, because that's what you do. But even that, we get trolls all the time. The other couple weeks ago, it was... I'll give them a credit. It was actually pretty creative, but it was 3 guys turned themselves into skeleton, and each one played one of the different instruments that you can emote in ESO, standing on either side of the commanders in line, which was actually kind of funny in its own way. And then 5 minutes later, they gave up and went off when we didn't interact with them whatsoever. So, and remember, don't feed the trolls. Ever. But yeah, that's even if you're not saying things out loud, the trolls are, if somebody's got nothing to do and they're waiting on something, they're just gonna be trolls. It's what they do. One of the downsides, however, of course, for using that group say is, especially for an event, is that no one can see you role-playing either. So while the trolls may not hit you as often, role players might pass you right up. So there's a chance, you're doing your event and random role players are able to join if you're doing it and say, but they can't do that if they can never see what you're saying. It's, and sometimes just being seen out there, your guild being seen role-playing out in the world, that's probably the best advertisement you can do for a role-play guild.
Oh, yes. I think that is, for me, hardest thing as a modern guild leader is that I can't just role play in order to get people, which in the past I've always done, and now advertising and openly working to get members has kind of been forced on us because of mega servers and all of that. It changed the way the dynamic works when you find people.
Change the meta, as they say.
Because back in the day...
Back in my day...
Yes. We would go to the Haze and RP, and people would see our guild name underneath our names and be like, oh, hey, those guys look fun. Now, nobody even in ESO in particular, no one has a guild underneath their name, so it's impossible to know who's part of what.
There's an option for it, but what kind of idiot? I mean, I've seen it there. I'm just like, I don't need that much more text on my screen, so I turn it off.
I think the only way you can have it on there, too, is if you have...
an add-on, I think.
You have that god-awful, ugly...
tabard
on you wear.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's that, too.
Like a baby bib that you have to walk around with it on.
Yeah. You can't hide it, and then it just shows up. But, yeah, I found that by accident. Because I didn't even, when you asked me about it, Jazz, I didn't even realize it was showing. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. If you wear the tabard underneath your costume, then they can't see the tabard, but they can see your guild name. The bottom line is, though, if you want to use armor that you found in game, then you can't wear the tabard because then it shows and it's stupid. So
yes.
It looks like a giant baby bib. I haven't actually
listening, ESO.
I can guarantee you they are not.
They're not. They don't care.
Have you seen their Twitch or their Twitter feed? They just do what they want to do, and like the new mansion that's probably going to be $100 or more that's coming out.
Yeah.
Is it the one that just came out? Because I looked at it, I didn't like it.
I don't know. I just saw a preview of it. As far as I knew, it wasn't out yet, unless it came out today.
It was like oh god, I can't remember what it is.
It looks like a Roman villa to me.
Yeah, it's out. I know.
I haven't seen it yet.
2 guildies were talking about it, and one of them mentioned that the pool was offset, and she's like, Twitch. I'm like, okay, I have to go look now. So yeah, in the pool, when you come in is a little offset, and it's just like, if you're a decorator, oh my god, yeah, you would never be able to own that one. Just the walking in and having that full offset, it's no.
Yeah, I was seeing that. But yeah, that's and they're never cheap either, especially the ones that are only going to be out for a short period of time. But yeah, it'll be fun. But no, ESO's not listening. They just do whatever they want. Like most games at this point, which has its upsides and downsides, because when they do listen to the people are usually stupid and give them horrible ideas.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Yeah, and when it comes to being seen, like we were saying, that's often one of the best ways to get people interested in your guild. And especially with the modern MMOs, it's already difficult with the mega servers and things like that. And the housing, a lot of the housing, while housing was both one of the most amazing things for role players, it was also sort of its own, the bane of our existence as well, because it was just easier to shut yourself off in a house and avoid the pains in the ass that would try to ruin your role play and the frustrations that go along with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was the downside, and still remains the downside of housing, is because you are forced, because the trolls and games refuse to manage the trolls, because, well, they have a right to enjoy their game too. No, they really don't. If somebody isn't enjoying the game to the point that they're making other people not enjoy the game, then it really becomes not acceptable. I don't know why this is complicated. Maybe because they're all trolls that run the games. I don't know. But
a lot of them just don't care. Well, as we've seen with Pantheon, they just don't. The devs coming up, they don't.
Yeah, but it's not even an RP issue. I mean, there are people who complain about being trolled by the same people.
True.
You know, in raids and groups, or just walking around and they're doing a quest and this guy's jumping over their head and, you know, vomiting around them and you know, just being a troll.
Or killing their guy that they're actually after before they can get a chance to, because they're stronger.
I got somebody doing that to me the other day and I fixed their noggin. So that was really kind of funny. Fix their wagon, I guess is the better way to say it.
Fix their noggin. Yeah,
I like that one, Jazz. I'm all with you on there.
He kept waiting until I'd get to something and then he would jump in and kill it. And so I ran up and acted like I was hitting this creature and he jumped in and hit it and it was a world boss.
And
then I ran off and let him die.
Nice.
He had choice words for me in shout, but that's okay because all I said to him was ha 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 ha, and ran away. So it was really funny to me, and I felt
I can't believe he fell for it.
I know you think he was. I mean, a lot of people run without that stuff up because they like the immersion.
I'm not that big into immersion.
I'm not in ESO.
I'm all about. The game's too damn big in ESO. I'm all about convenience and getting there and getting shit done.
Yeah, and also because I will run right up and hit something, and then oh crap, that's a world boss.
Right.
So I finally turned things back on so I could see because after the third or fourth time of dying to a world boss, I decided I was an idiot and really.
This isn't as immersive as I thought when I keep dying.
Yeah, it's really not as much fun. I need to stop doing that. But we wandered off topic. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Well, it's kind of part of it with trolls and story events. It's gonna happen. So,
yes.
So
don't feed the trolls.
Don't feed the trolls.
Ignore them. They'll go away.
What should your story be? Of course, not everything has to be combat or fighting, though. As far as I'm concerned, it should be. Always, there should always be fighting. Mm-hmm. Now, actually,
it is true that a lot of people prefer it that way, but no, there are a lot of good ways to make a story that have nothing to do with fighting at all.
Yep. And it's, and even just a quick, gotta defend yourselves and fought off the bandits, even that could just be a quick, fun thing. But it's not always necessary. So we'll hit a few basic ideas that, I try to come up with like the very basic core thing and from which everything else kind of branches off when you go more into specifics. And one last thing before we do go into that, because this actually, I guess, would kind of be considered part of it, you find a location that coincides with the idea of the story. I know we're using our imagination, but most MMOs have so many locations. Just a bit of prep time to find an area that fits the setting. It is always worth that extra little bit of effort and can help add that extra little bit of immersion into the experience. Because if you're, while we can use our imaginations, if you're trying to, like that heist roleplay we did, if I tried to do that not in a building that was closed in, but we just did it outside and pretended we were in a building, it's kind of stupid. It ruins that extra little bit of immersion that you're probably going for. Think that makes sense there, Sib?
Yeah, no, that makes
it better. Or else.
Totally does.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do something in a dungeon, using a dungeon is perfectly, legit, especially if you, maybe not in, what was that, Final Fantasy 14 sometimes, because there's a hour-long timer for you to finish that. So if you're going to do it there, you better make sure you get done in an hour. If you want to get to the end anyway. So that's kind of a bummer. But yeah, the servants, we've done a lot of dungeon crawling roleplay and things like that in actual delves or things like that, just because it fits the atmosphere that much better. And a lot of the locations I've noticed, they fit almost perfectly with the type of story that they're doing. Like that heist thing, I actually went around and looked all over the place for a specific sort of building just in a generalized way, and it helps, with the story elements of that when you can actually see and play off of what is physically in the game. It really does add an extra little bit, and if you're already going through all the trouble of coming up with a story and all these little plot points and things like that, you may as well spend the extra half hour to an hour in game running around looking for something, especially if you got to this point. You've probably seen enough of the game to have a general idea of what area to kind of go look in anyway. So it shouldn't even take you that long. I think it took me 20 minutes to find what I was after. And, the more, and while you're out questing, just keep an eye out. Be like, hey, that I actually got one right over here for an idea I have that I had bumped across. And it's like, well, I'll write that down in its location and I'll use that later. So yeah, location, as they say. So going into the steps of the basic stories, the first one I have here is, of course, the tried and true, something evil needs to be stopped. Or I guess if you're a bad guy, something good needs to be stopped. Yeah, so zombies, vampires, werewolf, necromancers, halflings, anything.
Really doesn't matter, yeah.
Anything of pure, unadulterated, concentrated 3.5 foot, hairy-footed evil.
Halflings.
Right. Can be used to, do a quick roleplay event type of thing. It's kind of a typical trope, but it works in a pinch. There's a reason that entire movie series are based on these things. It's because it works and people pay money to go see them. Looking at you, Underworld 15. We have vampire werewolves now. That's actually how Sib and I got together. Was we went and saw it was the worst of that series, Rise of the Lycans. It was not their best movie.
Do you want to tell them the other movie we went and saw together because you wanted to? Okay.
No, that's good.
Marley.
No.
Now I have to know.
Hey,
Marley
I wanted
and
to
Me?
see Marley and Me without being a creeper, and it was adorable, and it made me cry. I cried big fat man tears.
I told him, I said I would go
Spoiler
see
alert, the
Marley
dog
and Me with
dies
him
at the
if he would
end.
come see Underworld with me because I didn't want to be looked at funny because I was a chick going in there to watch this action show.
Mm-hmm. Which turned out to be a lot of bad CGI and kind of undid the story of the first two movies as well. Yeah, I don't know why they did that one. The other ones were not that bad. So, as we were saying, evil halflings. Killed them. One of the other ones, too, of course, if you take out, we had mentioned in the previous episode, some guys had brought it up, take out the world traveling stuff, just traveling, like a traveling adventure, going from one location to another, taking an item along a path, or just people, perhaps coming across bandits, or even just strangers. Not, like I said, but not every event has to be something of conflict. Just your characters spending time together. I actually remember we did it back in ESO with the servants a long time ago, and that was the one I've told where we all got there and only 4 people could go in the building.
That was awful.
Yeah.
That sucked. Another good one that was actually successful because the game didn't get in the way was in BDO, and I can't remember what the guild was, but Cersei might remind me because it was, at the time, her guild. But we were traveling from when she had got the guild passed on to her because the people that started it just abandoned the guild and started another one, which I don't know why, because it was a very successful guild. But we traveled from where it was at that location and actually role-played migrating the entire guild over to a new town, which was like half a world away. And it took several hours for us to do it because we walked along it, we chatted. When the in-game night fell, we actually camped over the night, and everyone was just chit-chatting and talking and getting to know each other. It was there was no real conflict, no real anything that attacked us out of the darkness or anything like that. But it was a lot of fun. It was basically almost like a tavern role play, getting to know characters in your guild, but without the drinking. And there was a point to us all being out there. So it's one of those, you can come up with variations on that theme. And like I said, it was a lot of fun. You got to know a lot of the characters. I actually got to flesh out my character a little bit. Have we ever done anything like that, Jazz? I can't remember. Because I know we'd been in EQ2, we'd been in the guild hall for so long, there was no point in moving.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did have, in our guild, the way we also had, our guild attacked and destroyed, and we had to rebuild, and that was an excuse. And it was a lot of fun to do the combat for that, but that's about the closest we ever got.
Yeah. All right, well, good talk.
I don't plan a lot of these events, so I'm not a lot of help. I mean, I've attended them, but not planned them.
Well, as an attended person, I think that's your view is important too. I mean, I've done lots of group RP and planned it out and done it, and I know Xanis has probably done more than me, actually, because he was often the one in our guild who did those things for a long time as an officer.
Mm-hmm. I like making
important.
People beat each other up.
Yeah, it's important. And, the one time that I organized everything and we were in an attack scenario and the person who was supposed to be there as the DM couldn't show. So I had to, and I ended up rolling, which Xanis may remember, for the bad guys.
Very well, if I remember right.
I think I've heard this story.
Unfortunately, well.
Yes, I just about killed.
I think the bad guys
guild.
Won.
Yes, they did. We ended up having to retreat. Everybody almost died. It was really horrible. It was
one of the few times in an event, because obviously that's another thing. You can't really kill people off in these events. So sometimes especially if you're like Jazz who lives and dies by rolls, you might end up having to God mod your way out of it just a little bit or put the dice down.
Little. Right. Oh, it was truly awful.
I think by the end of that, if I remember saying, Jazz, stop rolling.
Yeah, I think they all took the dice away from me. Tilder took over for me and started rolling.
It's time for us to actually kick some ass. Because we'll be getting
so
into
he
that
started
at
rolling,
the end of this.
Yes, he started rolling and we started winning. And it was just, I mean, I couldn't believe it. Was rolling 99, 98, a couple 100s. They were like, really? Really? Really?
You can't lie like the rest of us do? I mean, we would never do that.
But it was just awful because, and then when I would roll my character, I rolled her the first couple of times, and I think it was the third hit, I rolled a 1. So my character was then out for the count at that point. Near dead and was removed from the field. So it was up to everybody else. And
this is why we don't let Jazz do nice things.
And that's why Jason bought me that t-shirt that I'm actually wearing right now.
Which one's that?
It has a whole bunch of dice, and it says, "My dice are trying to kill me." Because that's why he bought me this shirt, in commemoration of that event. And the other one that came not long after that, where I brought the whole tower down on all of us. Yeah. And we all barely escaped with our lives. And after that, I was never allowed to ever, ever, ever roll for the bad guys ever again.
No.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and if anyone ever doubts our nerd credentials, she's literally wearing a shirt based on something that happened in roleplay.
Yep.
It's about as nerdy as you can get.
It really is.
Yeah, and as I sit here wearing my, let's see, I've got the symbol of the Jedi from the Old Republic on my chest right now, so I'm not exactly one to talk. But I will throw that stone in that glass house all day long. It's bulletproof
I'm
glass.
just in my pajamas.
And I have a blanket for my son that a certain someone made for me that had our guild logo on it. And I still have that. It's still tucked away in a safe box somewhere.
That was one of my favorite blankets to make, too, because the logo was so unique. I loved it.
It was
I don't do that for people very often anymore. Here and there, I'll make one.
I think the last few have been family. Yeah.
That was awesome. And every time I unpack it, I'm with somebody, they'll be like, "What is that?" I'm like,
it's a baby blanket.
It's a baby blanket. What's that symbol in the middle? Like,
our guild symbol.
I tried to explain to my mother that it was our guild symbol, and she goes, "Your what?"
It's the devil.
I was like, never mind. I'm not even going to try to explain. I'll end up probably would have liked her an extra.
This is what we use to summon the demons to protect the child while he's sleeping.
Yes.
Whoa.
You have to be a special kind of nerd to get that one.
Yeah. That was pretty bad. But...
Hogarom. Anyway. So the other kind, we'll get back on topic, is mysteries and puzzle solving stories. These ones actually end up kind of like a lot like a D&D venture. They can typically take place in the caves, like I was talking about earlier. You got locked doors, traps. Setting can be pretty much anywhere for that reason. They typically might have a bad guy, or if you're in there hunting relics like an Indiana Jones style thing, it might be the environment itself that you're fighting against. It's pretty basic if you've ever played D&D, or if you're even remotely familiar with that. If you've been role-playing for any length of time, I'm sure you're probably, or even if you're not, it's just if you're kind of a nerdy sort of dork and you've watched enough movies even, you probably figure out how to do that kind of stuff. And those are the ones that typically take place best in a dungeon, or if you're in ESO, a delve or something like that. And so something else that can actually involve all of these is, of course, the arcing stories. And these tend to happen depending on how big your idea is, or if you have like a reoccurring character, which, especially when it comes to guild RP, if you want to have somebody that's like harassing your guild, typically like it's not another player character, because those are their own separate thing. That's typical, interactive guild roleplay, that kind of thing. But if somebody's actually playing an NPC sort of bad guy that you actually can kill, these typically come into story arcs. I know they tend to happen anyway, so if it can involve all of these. Sorry for rambling again, sickness. I realize I'm rambling even in the middle of rambling. And a lot of times, like, the overall story can't be told in a single event, but you sort of do chapters of it. You can kind of plan them out if you want to. I mean, when I say plan them out, kind of plan it out in your head, maybe even an outline if you're that kind of an anal retentive person. It's not a bad idea. Just make sure that you leave wiggle room open for the adaptation, depending on how each event ends or goes, depending on the roleplay involved. Because while you're doing these things, as always, you have to leave. It's roleplay, unless you're doing completely scripted. This is how it starts. This is how it will go in the middle, and this is how it ends. No matter what you guys do, which most people don't like, including all three of us. You got to leave that wiggle room. So if somebody really gets hurt, if somebody, if the rolls are really good and they just completely wipe the floor with your guy, and you have to do the old cheesy, and he quickly opens a portal and disappears because, but you gave him an ass whooping. Maybe next time he'll actually be, you gotta leave that in there. Maybe he's not fully recovered the next time they bump into him, or if he wipes the floor with you, kind of go with that. I think one of my favorites on this one was what I did with the Watcher. Jazz remembers him.
Yes,
that
he was awesome, and he lasted a long.
He was a real long, and it was kind of one of those. I kind of based it was like a comic book thing almost, because he was actually defeated for a good long time, and like any good villain, he slowly came back. Yeah, but
he was fantastic, and I know I got some people who were complaining that it was God Mahdi, and I'm like, he's a villain. He's supposed to be a little God Mahdi. It
was and that's the thing. It was one character, and it was one character against an entire guild. So if you have to bump that power up so that there can actually be a challenge, I didn't want it to be super easy, because obviously if it was actually my character Xanis versus the entire guild would wipe the floor with him, no matter how strong Xanis is. It's it's dozen on one. No matter how powerful he is, he might give it a good fight, but it's kind of like a bad guy getting taken down, by 12 cops, because on meth. Sure, the meth head's gonna get a couple licks in there, but eventually they're gonna dogpile on him and get him.
Yep, yeah, and that's and we did eventually kill him off. Mm-hmm. He's dead now. But his son was still around and is still floating around somewhere.
Yep. Yep. And and it was a psionic, it was EverQuest 2, so they had a lot of powerful psionic beings and telepathic
Yeah,
stuff.
they're fighting monsters. He has to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, so it was basically one of those things. But he would materialize out of darkness, and he would, at the time, for whatever reason, later on, they actually took the ability out. If you had put on certain glowing torches on your person, you could actually affect the lighting in the room, and that was one of my favorite things to do, which is another good thing. If you're ever actually able to build where you want to be there because you have a housing that can do it, that's another good way to do it, by the way, for locations. Throwing that out there.
I did that on...
Yep.
Hold on. I had a spare house, and I think me and you went through and made it like a crazy house.
Yep, we made a fun house for Halloween.
It was it was supposed to go into her head.
Oh yeah, there was that one too. Yep.
We had that event where the house was like inside his head or inside her head.
In her head, yeah.
And we had a porthole that we had to go that we had to go through, and everyone kind of went to this her mind, which was fun. And
it was
that
neat.
one. I think that was probably the only thing I ever set up.
Yeah, because we did, when you do deal with psychic RP and stuff like that, you typically just describe the mindscape of the person, and it's a lot of games wouldn't allow for it, but EQ2 is, like we've said before, it has one of the best player housings ever. We literally were able to take this castle, and we were able to make things like, in one area of it, we had NPCs actually dancing with each other, floating in the air, and actually it kind of looked like that scene out of the Ready Player One trailer, now that I think about it, where all the guys were dancing up in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
But we did that first. That was our idea. Take that, Cameron. Screw you. And your 15 Avatar movies coming out.
That was the thing with EQ2. You could have so many people come to the house.
There
wasn't a limitation.
Yeah, and it was crazy. If there was, it was crazy high. But yeah,
they had awesome decorating. I love the decorating in the EQ2. I had to throw that out there.
So yeah, it's just one of those. That was a lot of fun. But if you're gonna plan a villain, if you're using your own character, you got to watch with the God Modi thing, because that can actually dissuade people, because it is your character. But if you're going to play them as an NPC that's supposed to be a powerful necromancer or a psionic being or some demon, you can bump up the level, because, in the end, they're probably going to be end up getting killed anyway. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you're not going to last forever, because it's not fun and it's not very satisfying. Even if they get away and, they come back later, at least they were defeated for a while. And lastly here, kind of imitation's the serious form of flattery. I do it a lot. I get ideas from watching good TV shows or a movie, and just take it into the game world. It's like a huge inspiration for great ideas. You're not making any money on this. You're just doing it here to provide fun for your friends and guildies and maybe the community. So if you're inspired by something you read in a book or you saw on a TV or a good movie that would make a good story in the game and with your friends, like, go for it. That's one of the stories I've come up with recently. We were listening to it, and it was just one of the characters Mikey, the one black kid, as he was older, interviewing the old folks from Derry. And I was like, in there telling all the craziest things that they knew that had happened in the town. But I was like, it would make a really neat role play event where if there's some serial killer or something around there, that people have to go and interview, like, the old couples and things like that from the town. It would be a neat event, and there wouldn't even be gun combat necessarily in that. But just talking with elderly folks would be kind of interesting. So just, it can be any little thing that might make a really interesting or deep story. And so moving on here, like all things in events, people's time isn't infinite. Neither is yours, obviously, but neither are the people that are coming to them. So it's best to try to keep these things around a couple hours, between, what do you guys say? I say around 2 hours, but, maybe 3 at the most is probably the very upper limit on most of them. Sometimes they do run long. But if you try to aim for an hour to 2 hours, people won't have to, leave like before it gets to the end. Nobody likes doing that. I personally hate joining in on a role play, not because like I hate the role play that they're doing, but I hate abandoning it before I get to see how the story ended. And I don't want to make them feel bad, like, I legitimately have to leave and sorry, I don't want them to think like your story sucks. I don't want to be here anymore.
And a lot of people, 3 hours is a lot of time that people don't have. Like me, it's hard to pin me down for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Adulting, it sucks. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's why you got one of those things, like Jazz's role play that she had talked about with one guild that went on for, I think she said 3 hours before they even got to the point, and then it was another 2 or 3 hours after that.
Yeah.
How many people had to bail on that before you even got to the end? We lost
a lot of people by the time, and I get it. Some people have nothing else to do, and they're fine with that, and I'm fine with that.
Right. But you want to try to hit your widest. It's almost like doing a podcast. You want to hit your widest audience possible, or any, or a business. You want to hit the most customers that you can get and keep them as happy as possible.
If the core people in your guild all can stay up till late and don't have to get up early in the morning, and that's who you're going for, then you probably should tell people ahead of time that that's the case, because a lot of people hate to log out knowing that their character wouldn't have left.
Right.
But had no choice because they have to leave. They have to go to bed.
Right. You have to ask the DM.
You don't want to make anybody feel alienated, in the guild.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes they feel like
every single event circulates around the fact that most people that have been in the guild a long time have no life.
Yeah, or they're young and they don't have, they work, they don't work until 2 in the morning or 2 in the evening and get off in time to come role play until 2 in the morning,
or go to school.
Yeah. So when that's the case, it can be very alienating for people who want to participate but know that they're not going to be included because nobody's included in the actual story until 3 hours in,
right,
when they have to leave.
Yeah, and everything before that was all prep and basically fluff. There's a certain amount of fluff in it, all of these things, like especially if, like in the servants thing, they've actually got it down pretty quick because most of the things they do for ordinators are missions. So they have a quick, it's literally, they start pretty close to being on time unless someone's straggling. And then, which is another thing, if someone sets up a time, fucking be there. Don't be that guy, okay? Don't be the guy, I knew it was here, but I am 10 minutes late just because I was eating. Well, you should have ate earlier. We're not waiting on you.
Yeah.
Different if you have a job, if you have to do something, but don't be that person.
I wanted to be there, but I didn't get off work until 6 normally, most days. And so they're like, well, it's going to start at 5. I'm like, well, I will be an hour late.
Mm-hmm.
I can't not be because I don't even get home.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, okay, do you want us to wait? And I was like, no, I'm just letting
don't wait for me. That,
Cial will wander in and throw herself into it at that point.
Yeah. But yeah, they're pretty good at, all right, well, here's what we have. This is it. Any questions? It's like literally that fast, and occasionally there'll be a few questions, and then they open a portal and go right into the event. So it's pretty quick, but if you take that time period there and you draw it out for, an hour or two, like even that heist one we did, maybe 20 minutes of him explaining what it was that you guys were after and what you were there for. But hopefully it was enjoyable because that was the time period to ask and, prepare your characters, as they would if it was a real life heist. So let's see here. Moving on from there. Yeah. So just respect people's time, both, yours and theirs. They're not doing other things either with family or watching something else that they might be interested in could come to your thing because they think that it'll be a good time. So kind of respect that.
Yeah.
Now with everything together, what should you do? Well, as the DM, it's kind of your job to tell people what they see and are encountering in the event. So something like, the room is dark and musty, the faint smell of rotten meat upon the air, and the distant sound of rustling, like sticks being rubbed and banged together, down the left hallway. So things like that, you know. If you hear that, you might be like, oh, okay, well, that's probably zombies.
Yeah.
You know,
And for the love of God, keep it concise.
yeah,
If
just
you
like that.
have to make 4 paragraphs to explain, you fail at being concise.
Yeah.
Please work on that.
Yeah, and I'm like, we say all the time, details are a great thing, but
Yes, they are.
it's a certain level, especially when large groups, you need to cut maybe some of the, some of the Tolkien or Stephen King-esque level of detail and maybe go something with a little more Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. You want to be more Harry Potter and a little less Tolkien.
Yeah, or what's his face? The guy that wrote Dune.
Oh yeah, him. He was another one. Yeah.
Those guys. But like I said, go with Shel Silverstein. I was once digested by the quick digesting skinks. Now I'm dodging in his teeth. Now I'm rolling in his intestine. And now I'm back out on the street. It tells a story. You went through the guy, and it was quick. That's all it takes. You don't have to go into every detail, kind of like I am right now, telling you not to go into every detail. So it's just a few quick sentences to do that, and it also kind of lets their imagination somewhat fill in the blanks. It might not be something it's basically something you get better at the longer you write. So just try to keep that in mind.
It helps also if you are the DM and you're the person that's going to be writing the story. Have some of these pre-written.
Yeah, so that's always possible too. Frank Herbert, thank you.
Copy. You can just block copy and put it out, and that way it's 1 paragraph and you're done. And you can sit there and you can tweak it and work it.
Mm-hmm. As you need to.
Writing, because like in writing class, they'll tell you if you're using the same word more than once, back up and try again.
Mm-hmm. I do that all. I still remember that from high school. I do it all the time when I'm writing my stuff. Well, not so much in Roleplay because it's so quick, but when I write the stories and journals and stuff. Yeah.
Right, and that is a good way to keep it concise, is to remember that it's a musty night full of dank smells and rustling sounds.
Yeah.
Not, it was a dark night in the dark world.
Right.
With dark following all around you. Please.
But there was also a blackness, a blackness that was so black it was blacker than black.
Yes.
Well, I will say, just add this little point, and also play to your audience. If you don't get a lot of people to show up, then maybe you can go into a little bit more detail.
Yes,
true. Yeah.
But if you have a lot of people show up, try to limit what
because you're gonna
only throw out the important details.
Yeah, because you're gonna have
a small group. It can be a lot of fun to be detailed.
Yes, and because then if the big groups, you're going to have everybody doing their responses, which is going to make a wall text. Whereas with a small group, you can probably, by the time everyone's done, it's probably still going to be in the same window. So that's very good point, Sib.
Yes, it is.
And it was, it sounded like GMing by Shatner. Thanks, Cersei. And yes, Frank Herbert was the guy that wrote Dune, the original. And then, of course, it was Anderson and his son that wrote the ones that came after he passed away. And they were okay. But they were a heck of a lot more concise, I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I ever made it past Children of Dune, even on audiobook. It got so wordy.
Yeah, it was pretty intense stuff. But so was Tolkien, for that matter.
Yeah.
Most people have never actually read the book, but if you actually read the book, good God.
We tried to do the audiobook of I did the audiobook of The Hobbit. It was torturous. I honestly don't understand how people love those books. It was just...
Well, I did love it. I love Tolkien, and I learned a lot from him.
Yeah, but these days, I almost couldn't finish even listening to somebody read it to me.
Yeah, it was extremely thick, and you had to just read for the enjoyment of reading.
Yeah.
If you were just trying to get through the story, then I don't think you could stand Tolkien. I enjoyed it because of the detail, and I was learning about a culture, and it was definitely really right in my wheelhouse. I really enjoyed it. But,
and I just hate halflings, too, so every time they did something fucking stupid, it just pissed me off. Like Merry and Pippin, I would have left those two behind so long. It had just been like, you know what? We're in an orc cave in the middle of the mines of Mordor. Boom! And you go. We'll let the Balrog take you. That solves most of our problem. Death to all halflings. All right, so...
They're horrible.
Yeah, well, they're freaks of nature. You got to also, going back to what we were talking about, you also have to make sure to keep up with each post that's posted from the other people. So as the DM, that you can reply and not leave anyone out. It's gonna happen. I mean, it's just sheer numbers. Eventually, you're gonna miss something. Just make a quick apology when they point it out, and then fill in for whatever happened to that person. And if you have to ask them to slow down a little bit or just to pause so that you can catch up, just do so. It happens all the time in the servants where somebody, typically the person DMing is sitting there crouched, and they'll go up to a certain point, and it never fails. There's always, either it's a new person or it's just somebody that's not paying attention, and they'll just keep on going. They'll be like, wait, get back here. You're not supposed to pass me, because this is... If I'm stopped here, that means I'm about to describe something to you, so you need to hold on and pause. So feel free to, if there's a whole lot of stuff or they're continuing, if people are talking back and forth, that might be one thing, especially if they're just discussing what to do next. You probably don't need them to pause, but if they're doing actions that require you as the DM to respond, if you're getting too far behind, you might just tell them, hold on a sec, let me catch up, and then you guys can continue on. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It is one person against, 5 to 12 people or whatever, however many people might show up. And so for combat stuff, of course, our last episode went into this in a lot more detail, but I'll just do a quick recap. When the combat stuff starts, it's best to have everybody sort of attack in alphabetical order according to their names, obviously, because would be weird to have an alphabetical order according to something else. If someone rolls low, one thing I would suggest as a DM, and I think I went over this at that time too, is don't say that the 100 or 200-year-old mage spell fizzled, or that they threw the spell and they missed entirely. It's like saying let's say, for example, a Navy SEAL at the firing range, unloaded a mag and missed the entire bullseye. It's not going to happen. They're too well trained. They're just too good. However, just like in the course of a Navy SEAL, if they're firing at a real person, that person might duck behind cover. So, they would miss, but they still would have hit their target if the guy had popped up. So with these kind of things, the characters, they're well trained in combat. It doesn't happen. So instead of them fizzling or missing entirely, you can just have the NPC bad guy can reflect it or block it on a shield or dodge. If they see it coming, it's a far better response than, you dropped your fireball at your feet, which is also not something that would happen, or you can't find a target when there's a whole bunch of people. It's just those little details that helps keep your players engaged and also feeling as though they're not failing while they are actually failing. But it's not a character fail. It's just that the other guy did that much better than them on this particular fight. It's kind of insulting to the player, especially, this could kind of go on a character-to-character basis. Like, if the person is a brand new scrub, or they are learning magic, or they're a raw recruit, maybe you can have them, do those flubbing things, especially if that seems like it's in character. But if it's an older character or a battle-hardened character, it's just not going to happen. So don't put them in that, you're, as the DM, it's kind of your job to make sure that these things are done correctly. It's the way it would go. It's your responsibility to kind of know the people that you're role-playing with. And if you're doing this stuff, especially for guild members, you likely do have that out-of-character knowledge that you can play off of while you're doing this. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure does.
Okay. I didn't know if Jazz was still there. I heard the dog.
I hit mute very quickly.
Oh, you're okay. And and one more important thing for the DM, uh, you're here to tell your story and let the players shine in their reactions. You shouldn't like throw up the roadblocks in their way if you don't think like something should maybe work that way, at least not OOC. You try and give each character their chance to do something cool or interesting or be part of the story. If everyone leaves your event feeling like they did something really cool or amazing or like had a moment to shine as their character,
Yeah, because everybody likes to be a superstar.
right, they're going to enjoy that. Even if it's just one time, a 2-hour event and one time they like really just had this awesome kick-ass moment, they're going to have fun and they're probably going to want to come back. Even if they got their, sometimes even getting your ass kicked and then, getting that last hit on the guy, the bad guy or, managing to pull somebody else out of the fire or whatever it is, it's a nice little bit of it. But if you're throwing up roadblocks, I'm going to use an example that happened to me is there was a thing and they were throwing fireballs and character knocked the fireball back, like, almost, charged the base and, hits it back. But the person that was DMing said that wouldn't happen, that fire magic wouldn't work like that. It should have shattered or something like that. We just had a disagreement on how that would go. But that's just how it went. I didn't believe that's, it was kind of a funny argument because that's not how magic would work, but it's like, really, that's not how magic would work? Fake magic, it will work however we say it will. It can do whatever we want it to do. It's not real, it's magic. And now given I could see it from both perspectives, but in this case it wasn't specified, so why wouldn't it? It could have very well worked. It was just that they chose not to let it work and then brought it out of character like that. Which is, you always try to solve those things like through your DMing rather than, like if she had said that when I hit it, it exploded and, showered me, that would have been I probably would have just gone with it. I wouldn't have even thought twice about it. But just being told out of character that that's not how it works kind of puts your feathers up. And so that's just one example. And I still love her. She's a good person. She actually does a lot of amazing stuff. It's just one time we had a disagreement. And so let's see here. And if something doesn't seem to work, like I said, you can keep it in character. Like I said, the fireball splashes against the field. If there's like a force field in front of you and someone tries to throw in a fireball at it, it can splash off of it if that's not the way it's supposed to be, or if your sword whiffs through a ghost, but another person charged the magical weapon or shot some magic at it. Of course, that would probably then connect. But you do that all through the description of the roleplay as the DM. And if someone asks, "Oh, see why that happened?" Of course, if they're not understanding things, which it happens, you're going to be typing all this stuff. Things aren't always going to be as clear as you want it to be, especially since you're doing it all in real time. Just explain it as best you can real quick and then try to get back to it. But it is always best to keep as much of it in character as you can, especially when you're the DM. Sorry about that. Still coughing my throat up. And so now we'll get into, we're about to wrap it up here shortly, but we're going to go into a little bit about what it is as the player and that you're as the participant and what your responsibilities are going to be. First and foremost, for the love of God, be patient. Like I said earlier, it's one person telling the story to anywhere from a couple to a dozen other people, give or take. Let them,
exactly.
Give them time to type it out. If you all typed and there's no response yet from them, don't keep typing. Just hold on. Give them time to, because they're having to read over every response, trying to make sure that they get a reply to everything that happened, and probably making sure that nobody gets lost in the shuffle as best they can. So just give them a little bit of time, type it out, And then once they hit it, then of course, you continue to go from there. But just be patient. It really is. It can be frustrating as a DM, especially if the group just keeps going and going and going without you giving you any time to respond. It can be very frustrating for your DM. And once they start to get frazzled, that definitely starts to impact the quality of the event that they're trying to run for you and for them. And it's not something you ever really want to do. Sorry, I got an eyelash in my eye and it is driving me out of my friggin' mind. There we go. So if, like I said, be patient. And if you're not patient, go fuck yourself. You shouldn't be there. You're role-playing. You're literally typing stuff out. Just be patient. If someone does confuse what you say, OOC, use whatever the OOC chat is. Like if you're doing all your roleplay in the group chat, maybe either use parentheses there, or if you're all in the same guild, use the guild chat is another great option to be like, just ask for clarification. Or if it's all in say, you can use the group chat then, or parentheses in the say chat, whatever it is that you're using is for your OOC talking. And typically it's going to happen. Sometimes a word gets left out, or while the DM's typing, they brain fart and forget something, or it doesn't come out as concisely as what they're seeing in their head and what you're then seeing in yours. So just ask. Just be there's no reason to get snarky or anything like that. Just be like, hey, is this, or do you mean it like this, or do you mean it like this? Is it?
A simple question and for clarification is usually received pretty well. Even for people that are going to get pissy with you later, they usually handle a simple clarification. Now, saying, hey, idiot, that makes no sense. Explain how that works. Is not clarification. Saying, I don't think I understand. Do you mean this or this?
Yeah. Did you mean that you hit him in the? Is he behind me, or is he in front of me now?
Right.
Did I hit him in the? Are you aiming for his head, or are you aiming for his ribs? Did he throw a fireball? Did he throw a punch? It wasn't clear. But yeah, like just, hey, jackass! Yeah, you were doing this whole thing. So when you're not being a total idiot, can you get to the point of what you was trying to say? Because I didn't get it. Yeah, don't do that. It's not nice. You're just being rude.
Exactly. And you're just trying to pick a fight, and that doesn't work. You need to remember to be patient and ask for clarification, and communication is key.
Yeah.
Everybody just wants to have fun.
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, and that's the whole point of these things, is you're just there for fun. Don't be a fun ruiner. And I've come across plenty of role players that they've always got to be right. They've always got to be in charge of everything. And when they start getting that attitude like that, they actually end up ruining the fun and the enjoyment for the very people that they're supposedly there to create fun and enjoyment for. And it never ends well. And after a while, people just stop coming to those, people's things. It's just not worth the hassle. It's not worth the headache. And it sucks when it does happen, but they've got no one to blame for themselves when they continually just like lore Nazi their way through things, or like, if you, that can't possibly happen. There's no way that would, according to, section 8 4C and paragraph subsection A of the rule book that I made up on something. It just don't do that. There's no reason to be that thing, especially when it comes to these things. There's always got to be room, wiggle room. Not every orc is, a tribal dumbass. Not every Dunmer or Dark Elf is, an evil piece of shit that only worships the three. There's always
only most of them.
Right, most of them.
I'm saying.
But it's like anything. There's it's like any real life race. Not all white people live live in trailer parks or make $40 billion a year. It just doesn't happen. There's everything in between, and it's the same thing with in-game stuff. Anything can be possible. So if somebody does something that maybe you don't like, you might just have to shut your mouth and keep it to yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point that I have run into over the years when you're in an event that's not yours. And somebody's doing something that you know or believe is a lore violation. The time to have that conversation is after, not during.
Yeah, because you're going to derail your own event if that's what you're going to do.
Right. You're derailing someone else's event, or you're derailing yours. And, or if you're in the middle of a big scene and somebody sends you a tell and says, that's not lore specific, say, we can talk about this after this over.
Yeah, if you don't like it, you can leave.
Yeah, I understand. You don't agree. That's fine. We can talk about it later. Yeah. Because you don't want to be distracted in tells either. So
no.
Keep in mind that everybody has their own opinions, but the time to have that conversation is not in the middle of the...
Yeah, because most DMs put a lot of time and effort into events. I know Ashen does, and I know other people who have done events. They do a lot of work. So don't be rude and don't ruin it for them and the others that attend. That's just rude.
Don't be rude.
Or
else. But yeah, it's just there's a time and a place, and especially when it comes to the things with lore, there's always gray areas, like take Star Wars for example. When people play the Gray Jedi, technically the Gray Jedi are not a thing. They don't actually exist. You can't have everybody being the same kind of Jedi that's not really a Jedi. It's just lore-wise for the Star Wars universe, at least so far. We'll see after the episode 8 if they exist or not. But they don't exist. But there's no point in arguing with it because it's sort of a thing online, and they were mentioned in a lore book that's no longer actually a lore book anymore because of the way that worked. It's just there's no point in arguing that. If that's what that person's going to be, either you just don't play with them or you just roll with it, and your character just thinks that they're an idiot, which also works. When in doubt, make everyone else an idiot. So before we wrap it up, we'll get to our last point here, which is be creative and be yourself. It's your time to show, and this is still for the player, not just for the DM, but it kind of works for both. Or it works more for the player. Yes, I know. Cersei says that she hates the Grey Jedi. They're the worst thing to happen in Star Wars, and I would agree. That's why I'm really hoping they don't show up in Episode 8, even though there's supposedly been, everyone's thinking that will be what that means, but I still don't think it will be. I think they're going to stick to the light and dark side. Anyway, so be creative, be yourself. I love Star Wars, by the way, if you haven't noticed.
Just a little.
It's your time as the participant in this to show what your character can do, and in a somewhat controlled environment. Be curious, look around, emote what you're doing. It just like a D&D game. Just be descriptive in what your character is doing. Don't just stand there like a lump, like you're not doing anything. That's not why you're there. If that's all you're doing, then don't. There's really no point for you to be there if you just kind of go along with whatever everyone else is doing. You got to participate. If you get into a combat, it's a good chance to use, that inborn power swelling within you, or, whatever. Or maybe a lot of people have always those secret inner things that they never really have a chance to bring out for their character. And storytelling roleplay is apparently Grey Jedi are hated notoriously from all angles, because we're also getting that from Power Hat the Wizard as well in the Twitch chat. Yeah. So sorry, they're not well liked. But that's a good time to have that kind of stuff come out, because it's, like I said, it's a controlled environment. The DM should of course also be creative in their description and actions and interacting with you on that. And so should you, like details and descriptions make RP of every kind and make it all more enjoyable to interact with. So, that's, you just gotta kind of go with the flow of it. If there's an opportunity that comes up and hey, this hit skill that I've had, or like a latent talent that I've never been able to use before, and our characters are all up against the wall because Jazz is rolling and we're all about to die, for example, that might be a good time to let that, like describe this latent ability, and maybe you'll get lucky and it'll turn out real well. Maybe it's so latent that it just brings you out that much closer to death. So I think that about wraps it up on the last of the Storytime excellent episode for this. We got any last words you guys want to say? Any parting thoughts?
No, basically you covered everything. I'm really pleased.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Party on my house, all right. So, all right, well, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully it wasn't, I know these last 3 episodes were just a lot of information and not nearly as many jokes as I typically like to throw in, but it's a complicated sort of subject at times, and the continued hatred of Grey Jedi, which just warms my heart, continues. I'm glad I'm not alone on that. I know you're still bitter. She's still mad because I got her into the books, and then Disney bought them and erased all the books. So
they took my Jana from me.
Yeah, her name was Jaina. You loved her so much you can't even say it right.
I say it how I feel like I say it.
Which is wrong.
Shut up, leave me alone.
The thoughts you literally say it wrong.
You're not my friend.
I'm not. But so all right, well, this will be the end of the 17th episode for RPMMORadio. I want to remind everybody again, if you have anything you want to say to us, you can email us at rpmmoradio@gmail.com. Visit us at facebook.com /RPMMORadio, Twitter at RPMMORadio, and of course, you can always watch us live at twitch.tv/RPMMORadio, and visit our website at, you guessed it, www.rpmmoradio.com. It's a theme. I know. It's so weird. You'd come up with a name and then you'd use it repeatedly on everything.
Yes.
So, do you have anything you wanted to say there at the end, Jazz?
No, just party on and
party on, man.
On and, yeah,
party on, Wayne. Party on, Garth.
Yeah. Be excellent to each other.
Be excellent to each other. So, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I can't tell you enough how awesome it is to have everybody listen to us and how well everything seems to be going. So I, of course, am your host, Ashen Phoenix, and the 2 ladies, Sib and Jazz. We appreciate you.
Later.
Very much.
And just make sure you tune in next time when we'll talk about why the Halfling novel There and Back Again was heavily edited from its original title and story, On My Back Again, How Bilbo Got His Groove Back. Next time on RPMMORadio. Good night, everybody.
Opinions expressed by RPMMORadio are just that, and should not be taken as a gospel truth, but pretty close to it. Music provided by Husky by the Geek. Visit him at youtube.com/HuskyByTheGeek to hear all his great rock covers.